Welcome to the Victoria Real Estate Podcast, where we discuss everything Victoria Real Estate. I'm Adrian McLaren, and I'm joined by
Jocelyn Chef
and
Vincent Bart.
and we are the Realtors at Sydney Nest team and at Remax Camosun in Victoria. Today, we are joined by Thomas Beattie, who is an entrepreneur and CEO of OctoAI.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you for joining us today. Now, before we get started, you traveled all the way here from Vancouver today, is that right?
I did, yeah.
Now, this makes us feel so special that you came all the way here just for us.
I've been meaning to come over.
You
guys were the excuse I needed.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Now you can write off the trip, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah,
Ferry
just show them
costs.
this.
Yeah.
That's right.
To
I
the
took
wind.
Harbor Air. That was just
Yeah.
delightful.
Yeah.
I have not taken a seaplane in 25 years, so
Oh, wow.
that was fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've actually never been on Harbor Air.
No?
I really got to do
No.
that.
Oh, they're nice. Yeah.
yeah.
This is not sponsored by them, by the way.
But if they want to be, Harbor Air.
Yeah.
So Thomas, can you start by just kind of giving the listeners a little bit of a summary of like your background, yourself, and make this more on the personal side? We're going to get into all the business and everything like that.
Right.
So where you're from,
Yeah.
who you are, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a British Columbian. I describe myself as a recovering investment banker because once you leave, you're infected for life. I worked in Vancouver for many years, moved to the UK, and spent 7 years working for both Canadian and an international financial institution, and then worked on my own. Came back to Vancouver more than a decade ago with my young family and started building businesses. So OctoAI is my second. The first one was a financial technology company, which ended up going public on the Canadian Venture Exchange and had real live customers in the United States.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
fun.
wow.
Now, can you share a bit about your journey of, starting in investment banking and then becoming this tech entrepreneur? Like, how does that happen?
Usually it's by mistake.
Yeah.
But I had experienced enough of investment banking to know that it was a rewarding career and an interesting one, but one where I didn't feel like I had enough stake in the outcome. And I really wanted to start to build. And for me, that meant taking a bit more of an active role. I didn't really mean to become a CEO right out of the gate, but that was the opportunity that presented itself to me, and I started to build. So that was how I made that transition. Thankfully, investment banking gives you lots of exposure to how companies grow and building teams and raising capital. And so I've been very fortunate to have that as my background, and very lucky to be working with a network of people that are used to investing in designing and building. So that was a great and easy transition for me.
Yeah. Okay. And what inspired you to co-found OctoAI? Where did that kind of come from?
Well, the whole pitch to me was that it didn't make sense that you spent $10,000 on a used car and got a complete report of its history, but you spent $1 million on a condo and you got 700 pages of crap.
Yeah.
And I was
You
like,
love that.
yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Zinger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just it stuck with me. And,
Yeah.
and immediately I thought, this is something I have to build. And my co-founders had experience in real estate, lived in Strata, had experienced some of those pains, anticipated and got hit with a special levy. And so this was a very real situation for us. And
Right.
as a proponent of financial literacy, I was really excited about the opportunity to bring something that would sort of serve the public good and also, be fun to put together. And
Yeah.
when we started this back in 2018, like AI was not a cool buzzword, right?
No.
Like,
No,
people
didn't even
did
know what
not
AI was.
Yeah.
know
Really.
what
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah.
And while the technology has gotten ahead of us, it really is cool to see what you can do with it now. And we've stuck to our roots, really extractive artificial intelligence that helps pull things out and make it make sense without having much creative license to
Mhm.
make anything up. Because
Yeah.
generative AI and hallucination and all of those
Yeah.
sorts of things are
Mhm.
real risks, and we haven't been interested in introducing those yet.
Yeah. No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. You want to
Fair.
stick to, I guess, the real facts
Mhm.
when it comes to something as serious as buying real estate. So
Absolutely.
So we kind of got the backstory of what inspired you to create OctoAI. Can you kind of touch on for our listeners what exactly OctoAI is doing?
Great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we built this tool to replicate the ease of understanding something complicated in an interactive and straightforward way with what we call Eli Report. And Eli stands for every little item, which is what we hope you understand about your community when you're finished. So that's where Eli came from. He's a friendly little octopus. That's our mascot. And
He's very friendly looking.
yeah, I mean, that was the idea. Make it something that made something difficult straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, OctoAI is your second tech startup, and this is more of just kind of an entrepreneurial question. What did you think, or what did you do differently this time compared to your last business that you started?
I stepped in more slowly.
Yeah.
So I was a co-founder of OctoAI while I was still working on the other project. And that allowed me to get more familiar with the business opportunity and what we were going to put together as we went. I was effectively a mentor to a young CEO that started at the helm of OctoAI, and I took over in 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, what would you say your biggest challenge has been building OctoAI, and then also, like, I guess, how did you overcome it?
Product market fit is the bane of every startup's existence. Trying to find something where people value what you've built and you're able to take it to some degree of scale. And that's hard. It doesn't really matter what your business is unless you're very lucky finding that perfect tool that inserts you to make a sale easier for somebody. It takes time to find that and to scale. So that was definitely the biggest challenge. In BC, as you know, as realtors, you have to review these documents for your clients.
Yep.
That is not the same across North America.
Oh.
So
Really?
lawyers do this in Ontario. It's called status certificate review. And I love that the realtor helps their clients here because you guys know this business and the issues that affect these communities so much better than a random or first-time buyer on the street. But it is a burden on you, and it's not your area of expertise.
No.
Mhm.
No,
So
it's not.
we're trying to make it slightly easier for you to convey and understand what matters. We don't alleviate your responsibilities to your clients, but hopefully we enhance the experience, make it faster for you, easier for your clients. That's the goal of Eli Report.
Okay.
I think that's great.
Yeah. No. I personally love Eli Report, and I think Vince, you introduced us.
You did.
Yeah.
He's the techie nerd on the team.
Yeah.
So he's the one that was
It's the
like-
glasses, right? You get it. You have glasses. Yeah.
We understand each other. Yeah.
Well, it is. I mean, you hand clients like a 200 to 300 page document, and it's extremely overwhelming, even for the savvy buyers. So
Yeah.
to be able to kind of package it with this bullet point report is great to help digest some of the reading.
It is, and we try to make it easy. We sort things by subject. We sort it chronologically. It's not a perfect solution, but it highlights everything and allows you to click that view button and see side by side the source material for context. And
Very helpful. I'll say that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
some stratas are more organized than others as well. So you will get some strata minutes that are easy to follow and everything's in the right place, but
sure.
it's few and far between. So,
It does vary. We've advanced over time, as you would expect a product like this too, with benchmarks that again put something up against peers for context. It's not a representation about a property, which is something I'm having to discuss at the moment, but it is a context piece for somebody that is new to this particular community and trying to improve their understanding. And because of the way that BC funds reserves in stratas, the special levy forecast that we put out last year has been extremely valuable to help again provide context. It'll almost never be right, but it will be approximately right, subject to changes from the engineer, subject to changes in your annual budgets. And we explain all of that on our website because once again, we're trying to be an educational tool to provide some degree of context around a very complex issue. And my attitude towards most things in life is that it's better to be approximately right than precisely wrong.
Absolutely.
And we just try and convey that the best we can. So I did post a story because a few months back, a realtor emailed me at early on a Saturday morning to say, my client, I sent the report and my client pulled an offer on a competitive bid situation because your report says there's going to be a big levy. So, first thing CEO does on Saturday morning is have a slight heart attack and think, please tell me we didn't make a mistake, because we have great technology and it's supported by admins. So me and my team review and verify everything to the best of our ability before that report goes out. And I checked it, and to my great relief, it was what the engineering report said. And whether that levy comes to pass in the form that the engineer predicted or not is not something I can opine on.
Yeah.
We don't give advice. We don't give opinions. But the context of the information that we had was accurate. And luckily, the client found another property within a week that fit their expectations. And that was an example of a realtor that did a good thing and a great job, I think, because they did advise their client. They got the information that they needed to them. And at the end of the day, they still made that client very happy. So
Yeah.
Well,
And go ahead, Joseph.
yeah. Well, and some people will choose to move forward with the sale regardless of what they find in the report, but having that knowledge that they should be putting money away every month and making sure that they're planning for this levy, because I mean, if you live in a strata property, realities are you're probably going to be paying a levy at some point.
Yes.
So having an idea of ballpark where that levy is going to sit,
And
I think
when.
it's fantastic. And when, because you can plan for it, which
That's
is great. Yeah.
And one thing that I've personally found with clients buying strata properties is partnering with a good inspector who takes that depreciation report and then also gets into the nitty gritty of the building and says, you know what, like it says the roof needs to be done in 4 years, but they've been doing maintenance over the course of blank, blank, blank. And in my professional opinion, I think we're 10 years out. And so I think you need to take, all the information in the strata report with a grain of salt, and then you need to apply it to the real life situation of what's actually happening.
That's right. I heard the same thing from one of the big management companies on the island today at lunch. It's like the engineering report says you got to do the siding, but if you're maintaining your siding, you might do some select repairs where it's needed, but you're likely to be able to defer or reduce the overall impact of that project. But eventually, you need to redo your roof, you need to do your siding, you need to do your plumbing system. Most things happen eventually, but the engineers, by nature, will take a slightly more conservative view. And because historically, stratas have been able to waive the requirement to update their depreciation report, there's a lot of old information out there, which makes it very difficult, very unreliable. And thankfully, there's light at the end of the tunnel there because of the rule changes that have been brought in.
So it helps. It doesn't necessarily help you. Well, I guess it does, because there's that old adage, garbage in, garbage out. And if the information that's being fed to your Eli OctoAI is totally out of date, then the report's going to look really scary.
It will.
And without the context.
We put up a flag, so if it's older than a certain number of years, it's yellow. If it's older than a certain larger number of years, it's red.
Interesting.
Tell you that it is very old and very unreliable because the timing, the costing, all of it will be wrong. And again, I think it's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
But it is very unreliable, and that flag is there to remind you that you have to seek that advice from the inspector, talk to your realtor, get an understanding of what the building is like today, because sometimes we see depreciation reports that are 13 years old. And you know what? At that time, an engineer's guess of what was going to happen in 2025 is crystal ball level of accuracy.
Oh, yeah.
So, we do the best with what we have. And thankfully, the province has taken steps to make sure that stratas don't waive it indefinitely. And every 5 years max, they'll be on that new cycle.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to just do like a summary of what Eli Report is actually doing, because we're talking a bit of a higher level. So just for like the average consumer, basically what Eli Report's doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is taking all of the documents associated with the strata, depreciation report, minutes, et cetera, 400 plus pages potentially, and it's using AI to summarize all of the information of financials, potential flagged words of leaking, or bylaw information, etc., and it's creating a report for you.
That's right. You dump the documents that you have, whether you're a realtor, or a lawyer, or buyer, and it will sort it all out for you. And within a matter of generally 10 to 20 minutes, you'll get a report that will be interactive and let you dive into all of those issues.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to point out that fast turnaround that's been, if there's one thing that makes Eli such a game changer, the old style that we'd have to do for depreciation report reviews, which again, we're not actually able to provide like truly informed advice. We're able to help people make sense of it, but realtors we're not meant to be engineers. I don't have a ring on my pinky. I am not qualified to make these comments. And so the thing I love about Eli Reports is it's a 20-minute turnaround. It's so fast. And again, it's not perfect, but man, it gets you so much closer, so much faster. And then when you do have these specific concerns about the roof or whatever, then you at least know where to be laser focused with your questions. So when you're asking that seller, hey, what's going on with the roof? You know, okay, I should be asking specifically about the roof and not about the windows because Eli identified that. So it's really handy.
It's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
We're putting together the puzzle, and Eli is an important piece. So
yeah.
Thomas, what is one surprising insight that Eli Report has uncovered in condo communities? Does anything come to mind?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every single day. Well, the information I got this week that I hadn't compiled recently was a kind of update on strata fees by community type across the province. And what's fascinating and slightly shocking for those that are buying into high-rise communities is that on average, the monthly strata fees in high-rise communities in BC is getting close to $600 a month. So that's a very significant number. And that does decline in low rise and further in townhouse. And thankfully, for those of you in Victoria, the strata fees are significantly lower on high rise and comparable on the low rise, I think, given the age of the overall community and the style of strata living here. So
now why do you think that is, that with high rise, they're seeing that large increase?
The cost, perhaps to a degree, the amenities that are involved. The cost of living in Vancouver are slightly higher than Victoria, so that would have an impact. But one of our future goals is to try and help communities identify ways to save some money. It won't always be possible, but there is a likelihood if you compare yourself to your peers that you're paying a bit more than they are for landscaping or concierge or even electricity. You might need to do a lighting upgrade to realize those savings. But if your electricity bill is substantially higher than your peers, I think there's at least a reason to take a closer look at that and see if even a more efficient means of home heating might be on the table. You know, heat pumps have come a long way, and the days of gas heated boilers is potentially in the rearview mirror. So, you know, I think that there's just surprises every day throughout the data that we build. And we've looked at over 6,500 communities in BC alone, over 10,000 across North America, having delivered over 25,000 reports.
That was my next question. You took my tagline.
It's a great segue. Great segue.
So yeah, you have delivered 25,000 Eli reports. Now, what are you finding? Like the insights that the Eli reports are giving that people are finding most valuable or giving you that feedback?
Yeah, I mean the special levy forecast, I think, is the part that a lot of realtors and underlying buyers are finding empowering. Knowledge is power. Transparency helps. And while it is not an accurate assessment of a building's health and future cost, it is super important to have some degree of context. And you know, I run the risk constantly of you know, are you giving advice or do you have an opinion? I really don't. Right. I'm letting the data speak for itself. What the engineers have said, what the budget actually says, and what they are doing. That's the best indicator of what they're going to do in the future. So I will extrapolate that out. I will set out all my assumptions. It's just math. So you know, the conclusions to be drawn are highly subjective, but I think still really important.
Yeah. So maybe this next question isn't maybe the best, but it's going to ask if you have an opinion on, you know, the red flags that, you know, buyers should look out for in these strata properties.
Well, having looked at this a lot in a very general and non-specific sense, you know, understanding the age of the critical assets of your community is really important. So how old is that roof? You know, what is the expected life of your community? there are certain projects that may be very disruptive to your lifestyle. There are considerations that you should take into effect if you've got a big window and siding project. Are you going to be behind wrapping in your building for 6 months? Is that what you want if you're moving into a new home? And one of the things I think that puts BC in an advantage compared to some other jurisdictions across North America is that you get the meeting minutes, because there's so much in the meeting minutes that may not be there in a standard condo disclosure package in Ontario.
Definitely.
Hang on. So this is just BC specific, is all those minutes are handed over as part of the document review package. That's not common across North America?
It is common across North America, but not in every jurisdiction. We have 51 jurisdictions in the US and a dozen in Canada, and they all have their own nuances. So in Ontario, by default, you may request the full reserve fund study, but by default, you get a 5 or so page financial summary only, and you do not receive the meeting minutes. But again, you're entitled to ask for them. And I strongly hope that more and more people in Ontario will ask, because there's really important stuff discussed in there that isn't. If you've got ongoing security issues in your building, if you've got elevator problems,
if Unit 312's throwing a party every Friday and a noise complaint.
I'm like, the minutes I think are some of the most important facts you'll find.
It's
about
the juiciest part of all.
I love the
culture.
fighting
What's the culture in the building? Yeah,
you can tell from the minutes.
You can tell. And I mean, I don't have an opinion on any of that, again, because it's not what I do, but you can see things in there that really matter. If you're going into a high-rise building and one of the 2 elevators will be down for 4 months.
It's important to know that.
Your blood pressure is a consideration that is non-financial, but
quality of life.
Quality of life.
Yeah, what's your quality of life going to be like over the next 5 years? So.
So has OctoAI found any ways that owners can maybe be proactive in protecting these strata investments or strata properties?
I think proper funding, especially for repairs and maintenance, is the most important. You guys mentioned it earlier. If you're taking good care of your roof and you're getting the moss off of it every year, you might get another 5-7 years out of it than what the engineer may traditionally project. And yes, that's a few $100s a year in those cleaning costs. But if you're able to defer a $1 million project by 7 years, that's a big deal. So I think if you're selective about how you spend your money, you're not going to go over the top. Everyone's wanting to manage their strata fees. But if you can focus on the critical elements and perhaps reevaluate how much you're spending on extras, that would be where I think the difference can be.
So for people listening, if you want to have, I think, an opinion or say of your strata property, I think you got to start going to, those meetings. You got to maybe try to get on the board of directors, and that's how I think you would help make those changes.
But also just having visibility into that information. One of the things that I think is just so helpful, not just for buyers, but for strata councils, for them to say, oh yeah, your unit, like you said, you're paying too much for garbage removal compared to what the average is. Having access to that data, it removes that uncertainty. And uncertainty is, I would say, the worst thing for business that we can possibly have. If you don't know if there are noise complaints, you don't know, are we paying way too much for insurance? Is that, I mean, I guess everyone could say that they are. That's a universal truth in BC. But it's just that context that's missing so often.
Absolutely. And we are trying to go farther in that direction. Eli Report is a great tool to go from 0 to 1 and to get into an understanding of a community. But we've got newer, more advanced tools built for property managers and strata councils that will help them at a more granular level as they're planning for their building budgets, make some of those decisions. It does have a scorecard. It's all based on math. It's not based on me grading it, which helps them see how they're doing relative to other buildings of the same type and age. And because we know about so many buildings, we can get into a cohort that's very similar. No 2 buildings are alike,
sure,
but very similar. And that's impactful.
I bet strata managers must love the tool, because you think about strata managers, they're getting peppered with all these council questions, all these, well, how long is our roof going to last? How much should this cost? And they're like, whoa, hey, I can gather quotes, but that's all I can do. So they're oftentimes totally overworked. So if a strata manager is out there and they can be pulling an Eli report on the strata, what an amazing thing to provide that data for a manager to be able to advise their councils appropriately.
I can have an opinion on strata management. I think it's one of the toughest desk jobs. I'm an investment banker in my past life, and I tell you, this is a tough job. You're inundated with questions and emails. People are not calling you to say thanks. Not very often.
No.
They're never nice about it. Hey?
They're unhappy.
People, pets, and parking, right? I mean, I hear it over and over again. These are the things that cause owners and people that live in those communities stress, and it just gets forked over to a manager who really is there as a steward for the community and the corporation, trying to guide them. This is a tough job. So I think anything we can do to make them more efficient, and I'm gonna plug my my other company, Strata Press, which I don't run, but it is a Vancouver Island-based company which is serving property managers and strata councils. That is an amazing tool.
I've used it. So I own in a condo that has Strata Press,
right?
And there are so many questions that I would normally just email my property manager or like the general inbox of my management company, because I don't know who my manager is and I'm chaotic. So it's so much easier to just go to Strata Press and be like, oh, what are the latest bylaws? Zoop, there they are. And it's as an owner in a unit, forget realtors, forget organized real estate for a moment, just as an owner to be able to have access to that data. It's such a no-brainer. The fact that it took so long for Strata Press to come along is, you talk about market fit. Like, I think as an owner, there's so much demand there. So I'm surprised every strata isn't using it.
They will eventually.
That's the
Sean
spirit.
and Paul are strata council presidents in their past. So they lived and breathed these issues and decided to leverage their technology expertise to start to build the tools that would help. And it improves every month. People that had looked at it 8 years ago, because it's been around for a long time, wouldn't recognize it today. It is a fantastic tool. I'm a big proponent of what they're doing, because I think it makes life in condos better. And that is the invaluable part of any good technology. You don't need AI to make something impressive. You need to have software that can incrementally make life easier, faster, more efficient, and better. That's what technology is there to help us with in our daily lives. And I think they're doing a great job at it.
Yeah. Awesome.
I agree. Yeah.
Thomas, do you see AI and automation playing a bigger role in real estate beyond Condo and Insights?
I want to hear.
It's an obvious yes, but I would love to get your opinion on that topic.
There's no doubt AI is going to play a bigger part in everyone's life. I think no matter what their career is. My son's school announced that the kids were going to have a specific dedicated tool, SAFE, so that they could learn about AI and interact with it, because these are kind of leaps forward, as the internet was 30 years ago. AI is today, and there are going to be good and bad things that come out of that. You guys will have seen it in staging. You can now use AI to stage a home quite easily. I mean, it's just a better system than it used to be. I knew somebody out of Calgary that was running a business that would write better listing descriptions. So you didn't have to come up with all those finesse words. You'd give it the generic, this is what I want. And then all of a sudden came out something that sounded magnificent. And, those little incremental changes help. So those are the things within the real estate world that I see. What do you guys see?
That's a good question. I'm giving us 5 years, guys, and then it's just all.
I'm right. No, I'm right there. I think what you've done for Eli, like for Strata Doc review, that whole process potentially wipes out. And I'm saying this is a positive thing. It potentially wipes out a whole section of the due diligence process. And I could see a future where you have an AI tool that, you think of all of the questions that we field. I could see where AI could replace 90% of the question, like all of the data that we have are, local experts, neighborhood knowledge. Does this neighborhood have drainage issues? As you're building these reports on stratas, I could see the same thing happening for single family detached. I could see neighborhood data being collected in a way where I could say, hey, is this a good neighborhood? Normally I would ask Jocelyn, hey, are there good schools in this area? Well, Jocelyn, if there's an AI tool that will allow me to just like instantly, kind of like the walk score, right? Like think of what walk score did for like local knowledge. There's that opens up the floodgates. So I'm really excited and terrified, and
I'm going to agree to disagree on this one. I do think that a lot is going to be automated, and I think it's great, but I think people always want that person.
Oh yeah.
That they can blame.
Agree completely. Agree completely. There's another way to say it, but at the end of the day, that's exactly
it. I mean, we
right?
see it with like service in Japan and stuff. It doesn't go as well because you like having a person that hopefully never makes an error. We never make errors as realtors, but
never.
Well, I can tell you that the AI is no better than humans. It will always make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I believe that these tools are all going to make us better at what we do. I hope that it makes us, perform better for our clients. I hope that it gets us and them to the home that they want faster, and that you don't have to field as many questions because they're able to focus in on those neighborhoods, those homes that meet their very personal criteria for what would make the right home.
Well, and to level the playing field as well for people. So everybody has the same point of contact, the same information, the same access.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, Thomas, before we segue into our next topic, I'm going to try to set you up nicely with this next question. If a strata council wanted to improve how they operate, what would be the first thing that they should invest or focus on?
If you're fortunate enough to have a property manager and you have to be of a certain size or be willing to pay for that, those guys do know this business better than anyone. So seek their advice because that's not something that anybody knows. And I have lots of views about strata, having lived in this world for so long. Strata council is such a tough thing for most people. You think about it, you've got an assortment of anywhere from a few to hundreds of people that are living together that don't have anything necessarily in common other than that they live in the same place. You're asking a handful of them to volunteer their time to put themselves in the line of fire as far as making decisions about your collective home. And they don't have the expertise that we all lack in certain fields either. And it's a very difficult place for them to be. And I think that most strata council members are doing it out of the goodness of their heart and because they want to protect their own investment and because they do have the community's interests at heart. So that's great, but it's getting harder and harder to find volunteers to join the strata council, and some of that's influenced by rule changes at the governmental level, which we can touch on if we're brave.
I'm curious to hear more about that.
Right. So as you might know, a couple of years ago the province changed rules about age and rentals, and you were no longer allowed as a strata community to control certain elements of that. So there are still retirement strata communities, but you can no longer decide that we're an adults only community. And you can no longer ban long-term rentals or restrict them to a certain number. And some communities maybe had 30 units and they said no more than 10% could be rented out. And that fostered a sense of community. It kept a degree of harmony and a desire of the owners to maintain the community. When you introduce long-term rentals in an unrestricted way, it increases the value of that property to an investor relative to a potential owner.
Sure.
And the investor's interest is net operating income. And how do you improve your net operating income? You reduce the strata fees. So if there is a community and a neighboring one that is identical, except that one is mostly investor-owned and one is mostly owner-occupied, the owner-occupied one is more likely to be investing more in its upkeep and maintenance in future.
Long-term.
Long-term thinking. And I think that that's one of the ways that there is been an impact by the rule changes. And the other is that you've got a greater willingness for people to volunteer in owner-occupied communities. If you're renting out, you don't want to touch it. You don't even live there, and your renters can't be on the Strata Council. So, there is a changing dynamic, and because these rule changes only came in a couple of years ago, I don't think we've seen how that will play out in full. But I think that there have been impacts from those rule changes, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Is that all you had?
Yeah, I never made that connection, but you're totally right. And a lot of, councils are an annual election process. So, typically I think a person would serve on a council for a few years. So I think that based on what I'm hearing from you, it's going to take a couple years for like the full change to really take effect. But like you said, the pool of people who are ready, willing, and competent to be on a council, that pool is going to shrink as more investors kind of take over. So interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, the next kind of topic I wanted to get into was the annual benchmark report.
Right.
And this new, I guess, offering that OctoAI is working on or has launched. Is that or
it's in a pilot phase at the moment. We're gathering feedback because we need more property managers who deal with the issues day in and day out to tell us what would be impactful and help them communicate what matters to those on Strata Council who have to make ultimate decisions and work with the property manager to implement their budget, to make those capital planning decisions, and to try and decide the direction of the community in the years ahead. So this is a tool for that.
Is that who it's for? It's for Strata councils and property managers?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a more detailed report. Yep. It is trying to go, instead of looking at communities of the same type and age, which is what Eli does, it zeroes right in to those handful of communities that are closest to it across the province, because they are all unique. And I can't pretend that there's going to be any homogenous group of Strata communities. But if one of the great questions I hear from people in Strata world, whether they're on their Strata council or otherwise, is, hey, what are the other communities like mine paying for this?
Yeah.
And they don't know. And property management firms obviously have a better sense, and they assist in getting quotes for services. But if we can help them identify where they're more or less than their peers, you get to calibrate that against the unique aspects of your community. If you have the chart gardens of Strata landscaping, you should expect to be paying more for that. I'm going to say you could save money on your landscaping. You're going to say that's the pride of our home. Thanks, but no thanks. But this is some of the ways that I think we can convey that information and assist the property managers with Strata councils who might be saying, the owners are telling us we have to keep the fees down. If we can show them a little bit more clearly how not contributing is going to lead to bigger levies and be the bad guy, I'm happy to be the bad guy. Property managers have a tough job. Let me, as an independent, without any views or opinions, use data to empower you to convey what you need to. And I think that will make for healthier communities.
I wonder, just tagging onto that, I wonder if vendors like snow removal companies, for example, might hate you. and the reason for that is, if I'm able to, as a snow removal vendor, if I'm able to have these like really exorbitant rates, and your report system tells the Strata, well, hey, that Strata over there, they're paying half of what you're paying. I wonder if that actually provides so much transparency that all of these vendors are going to say, hey, whoa, where does this Thomas guy live?
Some of them like us, some of them hate us.
Interesting.
The world is like that. We are trying to make it easier for communities to save money. We're doing that from both sides. We're helping some snow removal companies understand where they can grow their business.
Good point.
By providing competitive quotes. We are trying to help those communities identify which of those line items it is snow removal. We are paying double what we should. And snow removal is one of those things. It's seasonal, and it is also very different from year to year, because one year it goes on and on and on, and the next year you get a little dusting, and so, but if you don't have a snow removal contract, you're going to be the last one to get your streets cleaned. So that's a challenging one, but you're absolutely right. And what can we say other than we're trying to make things better for the communities themselves? It's mutual wins that I'm always after. If I can help a vendor grow their business and I can help a strata save money, then am I going to shed tears for whoever was charging too much for a service?
Yeah.
I'm not, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you had it good for a while. Go try somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Go pick the poor council that hasn't invested in an Eli benchmark report.
I'm not going to tout myself in that way. I think everyone's got a great property manager, and they're all individuals too. So it's not like you can say as a blanket statement, everyone's doing their best in a complex world where we're all constrained by time and by money. But
answer.
I really do think that there's some good we can do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I love that.
So I guess with this, are you seeing are you seeing common areas where strata communities could save money more regularly than other areas, or even operate more efficiently?
Because we only use math, it is a series of averages, and that means that where some community is higher, some other community is lower. So it is a widespread thing. I would say that we do not identify proactively critical maintenance items as being ones where you should be looking to save money. You should be getting quotes so that you get a competitive rate. But I'm identifying what I consider to be non-essential maintenance as where you should be looking to save. And I'm going to leave it to the strata council and the property manager to make those decisions on the maintenance items. So I'm looking at snow removal, landscaping, concierge, janitorial, elevator contract, and so on and so on. Not the essential stuff. So
awesome. Well, I kind of wanted to segue a little bit into kind of the current strata market in BC and more as a whole. And we kind of talked about it already. Strata fees are rising. I feel like special levies are increasing. We just had a referendum in Victoria for a $216 million pool.
Oh, yeah.
I listened to that episode. That was something.
And it passed. And so obviously costs are increasing. Do you have any insight into what's causing these shifts in strata fees and special levies? Is it just costs, or do you seeing anything else out there?
Inflation is real. You can't get around that. Inflation in anything construction related has exceeded the general pool of inflation over the last generation. I hope that changes, but who knows? Obviously, you have cyclical factors as well. 5 years ago, there was a hard market for insurance, and too many strata communities had been relying on their insurance policies to pick up the slack if they hadn't been on top of their plumbing and they had a pinhole leaks turned into a water loss, and deductibles back then were $5,000. Well, the highest water deductible I saw during that hard market was $1 million. And good luck.
Was that Shoal in Victoria?
No, I'm not going to name any names, but I don't think it was that. I'm not going to go. But we saw it. And good luck as an owner of a strata unit getting a personal lines policy to cover a strata deductible of $1 million. Like, if you could get it, and I don't think you could, it would cost you an arm and a leg. So there was a double whammy of insurance on owners for that period. Their deductibles and their premiums went up for the strata, and because the deductibles jumped, their personal lines policies jumped, and that was hard. And thankfully, we've entered into a slightly more relaxed market for insurance. That may change. There are constantly floods and fires and events. Earthquakes. Yeah. Wow. I didn't feel it as much here as all my colleagues did on the mainland, but yeah, that was something. So you never know with insurance, but thankfully we're not in the place we were a few years ago. And that's one area where you might be realizing savings relative to a few years ago. So inflation is real. Can't fight that. Costs do go up. Do your best to optimize what you can, and accept that being part of strata life means that you got to pay the fees.
I don't know if you guys do this too, but I actually worry when I see an older strata and has really low strata fees. It freaks me out because that means that there is a levy.
So you're absolutely right. What I try to tell people, because we can show them how to interpret our reports, and two of the dials on an Eli report show your CRF level, your contingency reserve fund level, your balance relative to the peers, and from the budget, the CRF contributions, the reserve fund contributions. And if they're both really low, you're probably going to face levies eventually because you don't have a lot in the bank and you're not putting anything there. If they're, both high, then you're probably well prepared for an imminent project. So things will change. What I like to see is a nice little balance. If one's low, the other's high. The world should be in equilibrium. And so, yes, you've nailed it. I think there's something really there. I won't go any further.
It's okay. We'll do that part. It's the realtors.
Yeah. So with these rising, strata fees and insurance costs, do you think that's going to change how people kind of approach condo investing? In your opinion, do you think people are going to maybe start looking at condo investing as less favorable due to these?
I think we've got really big macro factors that are impacting the investability of housing in Canada. I think, and this is a very clear personal opinion on real estate, that it feels very high relative to our incomes in this country. And the data consistently shows that our house prices relative to our incomes is among the highest in the world. And that should be concerning. It's concerning for, me. I have a young son. I want him to be able to afford a home when he grows up. And do I worry about that? Yeah. I worked abroad for 7 years. I had a well-paying job. I came back thinking I'd be able to buy a house. Nope. So, I think that there's a valuation issue that is going to be potentially softly worked out through some price stagnation and continued inflation, which will help bring that into balance. And I think there's going to be a bigger impact on rental rental values, which obviously
we're seeing that already coming down. We're seeing that.
Okay. Yeah. Please take over. What are you seeing happening in the rental market?
With all of the new construction in Victoria, I can only really speak for my experience in Victoria, but a lot of the new cranes, a lot of the cranes that you see around, that represent building sites, those are purpose-built rentals that are being built. There's not a lot of condo strata titled projects being built, and a lot of them are they just don't make financial sense. So the cheap financing, the cheap money that developers need in order to make these projects make sense, it only comes from CMHC. So the government is subsidizing construction costs through these really affordable loans, MLI Select, these types of things. And so we see the inventory level of purpose-built rental, for 40 years in Victoria, after the end of the MERB program from the CRA in the 70s, we had not until say 2014 seen a whole pile of new purpose-built rentals. And now everywhere you look, it's all that's being built. So there's that downward pressure because we have increased supply, but then also on the demand side, we've cut our immigration targets. We've cut the level of new temporary foreign workers that we're admitting into the country. That all has an impact. Now, on Twitter, the sky's falling in Toronto, although the sky's always falling on Twitter, I'm noticing. Victoria is sort of a secondary market. So most people, when they come to Canada for the first time, they don't start in Victoria. Everyone ends up in Victoria, but
not everybody.
Well, okay. We're kind of the second stop for a lot of people. So I think we're not seeing the full impact of that yet. Like the numbers in the bigger cities are dropping in terms of the new people coming that's dropping off faster there. We haven't seen that sort of contraction happen yet in terms of population, but it's coming. And then, the supply side that I was talking about, those two things. Rents have been coming down for the last 18 months, and there's nothing that I see as a house schlepper on the streets of Victoria. There's nothing that I see that's going to drive rental prices up over the next 18 months. I cannot see it happening.
Well, Vince, actually, I just double checked, and 1 bedrooms are down in Victoria over the last year. 2 bedrooms are up.
I would have to say
disagreeing with that completely. You're looking at apartments.com or something.
No. This is an article. It was pulled from I can't remember.
Oh, was it CMHC?
Geez, we're arguing.
I'm not entering that fray at all. You guys are the experts.
Thomas.
I would say generally that there is more demand for family style housing than single occupancy rental, and that's a thing.
And it's not
I read
being
about it.
built as much, unfortunately. That's to Vince's point. We are building a lot of purpose-built rentals, but they are
2 bedrooms,
condos, which unfortunately there is a population of people that are always going to want a backyard. And we're not building a lot of that. So we see it in Victoria. The single family is kind of its own thing. We can't compare it to Strata because
it is different.
Yeah, it's very different.
I live on the North Shore in Vancouver, and West Vancouver, like one of the suburbs here, gets singled out for its poor growth in housing.
Yeah.
But this year they'll be finishing a big purpose-built rental. They're offering it to members that are working and living in the community first. And it does have a healthier mix of 1 and 2 bedroom, even 3 bedroom, I believe, than studio, which is a big departure from the condo mentality in the big cities over the last decade. And it feels good. There are some steps in the right direction to build housing that people want rather than housing that people can make money on.
Right.
And and I know that's slightly disappointing for your profession, but there are always cycles. And and this is a cycle that I think we'll all get through, but maybe not an unhealthy one.
Yeah.
More housing is good.
Yes.
We like it.
More housing that people like.
Yeah.
It's a bigger market.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not just dirty realtors. We genuinely care that people have homes over their roofs over their heads.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Now we talked about a little bit about the rules that changed and that impact. Looking ahead, Thomas, do you see any more regulatory changes coming, or have you heard any whispers in the wind of for changes that are coming to strata communities?
I try not to partake in the whispers and the rumors. I would say that I think there's a general tendency across North America to move towards being more proactive about reserves. I think we are, as a province, guilty of underfunding by a fairly substantial measure. I expect in my lifetime that there will be a shift towards slightly more complete funding of reserves. Property managers have shared really good insights with me, which is that you don't want to be fully funded, because fully funded is based off of an engineer, and you're going to get an extra X number of years out of certain assets in your building, and that's fair. But we could definitely do better. And I think in the wake of the Surfside tragedy in Florida, where a condo half collapsed in the middle of the night and many people lost their lives, they've taken steps to require engineering studies, especially on the structural side. It's leading to big impacts on condo owners in Florida. Those are not necessarily positive, but there needed to be some action taken. So I think when you look at North America as a whole, everyone's trying to figure out, how do we make this style of living? Densification is continuing to occur. Nearly, or roughly, a third of North Americans now live in some form of condo, townhouse, HOA, gated community. And I think that's going to continue to increase. So we've got to figure it out. We got to keep learning and doing the best we can.
And in our market, in Victoria, it's 50%. 50% of sales of inventory, what have you, is some kind of strata titled property. So that's only going to increase.
Going to segue back over to OctoAI. So kind of the future of the company and a little bit about the condo market as well. What kind of feedback have you received from realtors, property managers, condo owners so far on the product?
We've received a lot. We've been around for a long time. We've delivered a lot of reports. Thankfully, the feedback we receive is constructive. People are quite appreciative of a tool like this. We are aware that there are alternatives. You've got manual review from Condo Clear here in Victoria. They do a great job. It's a different model. They do provide their wisdom and their advice. They are licensed to provide that advice. We're a tool. We're not the same thing.
Different price point too.
Different price point, different timing, and different things for different realtors, different things for different clients. I think that's healthy in any market. So I'd say that's how I see that.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you.
No hate mail.
Yeah. And so how do you see Eli Report kind of evolving over the next few years?
AI has evolved very quickly. Those tools are getting better. It is possible for someone to dump a bunch of documents and ask questions of it, and AI does a pretty good job at making some sense of that. I mentioned that I've been very gun shy about switching to something that's generative. I'm focused on pulling out what's there and letting you see the context. I don't want to take that step of putting down something that may not be well informed. but I think that there will be continued evolutions there. My goal for us is to see us become a successful startup. I've been at this for 7 years full time as CEO for 3. I need to find a way to make it economically work, and we're getting there. This means of trying to help communities save money is also empowering others in the community to grow their businesses, and that's where we're finding the wins. So over the past year, insurance has been a big thing and a big focus of ours. Our partners are saving Strata owners money by providing them with great quotes. We are doing our best to extend that into other fields so that we can continue on that mission and be a viable entity and scale our business across North America. So from a personal level, that's what I hope to achieve over the coming years.
Awesome. I love that. Do you have like a big picture vision for like what I would say like the better informed condo communities? Kind of a broad question, but
it is a broad question. And I think you'll see perspectives on that from the communities themselves. A lot of property management companies are taking a proactive approach to trying to build community. Because if you can de-escalate conflict among neighbors, you are going to be all happier and all on the same page. I feel that improving transparency is another step on that, because the more you know, the less suspicious you are about why something may be a certain way. So that's where I'd say.
You're trying to take away the drama and the minutes.
There's always drama.
That's my favorite part.
Drama. There's drama between all neighbors.
Oh,
it doesn't matter where you live or detached or anything. But
you're right.
But I think if you can de-escalate and improve that transparency and apply rules consistently, you do hear within Strata communities that sometimes some owners feel like they're being unfairly picked on, and CRT. For those that don't know, the Civil Resolution Tribunal, it hears complaints and cases from all sorts of things, but Strata is a big part of that. And there are all sorts of issues in it. And among that is the perceived unfairness of the application of certain rules. Why am I being singled out because I have a kid? And kids run, they do make noise. You can try and slow a kid down, but I can sympathize. My son is now old enough that he doesn't run like that, but at a time it is hard, and it's not deliberate in many cases. And is there unfairness between that and the person who plays their music too loud, too late, and all the rest of it? People, pets, and parking. It just comes back to that over and over again.
In terms of questions for the actual podcast, I have a couple more for fun ones if you have time. But guys, do you have anything else for Thomas in relation to OctoAI, Eli Reports, anything like that?
Thomas, I have this burning question. Since the intro, when we were talking about like who you are and how you got there,
it's been clawing.
It's been nagging at me. You have this background in finance, and yet you have this sophistication around technology and this knowledge of AI and this curiosity for these tools. I don't know. When I think of investment banking, I think of it's not as curious, and it's not like where did that start for you? And like, what was your university like? How did you get? I don't know. You just seem more curious about things than I would imagine a recovering finance bro would be. So how did that happen?
There's words I can't use on air, but I got frustrated working with a certain type of person.
Finance bros.
That inspired a change in career. I did want to have more control over the outcome. I cannot make every startup work. My last one got public. It did not become the success that I had hoped it would be. And one day I hope I will get another crack at that soon. But in this case, I just have a desire to build things that I think should exist. And I'm fortunate enough to have enough people around me that have skills, abilities, knowledge, talent, capital that we're able to put some effort into some of those projects. So yes, there's certainly that aspect. And then on a more personal level, I had a health scare in my early 30s, and it made me realize that we don't have forever, and maybe I should try and build some things while I can. And
very cool.
So
cool.
I got down to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone that's making Strata more appealing is needed in this world. I mean, Strata, I think Strata gets a bad rap.
It does.
And Strata has some wonderful qualities,
It
like
does.
community.
It does. Now, I'm going to clarify because I don't provide any good news on Strata. I do not. I'm sorry. I'm not the bearer of good news. I'm the bearer of news. It is transparency. What is there will be out there. I know that there has been some hesitation in the early days of Eli Report among some realtors. You're going to kill my deal. I told you I killed a deal. It wasn't meant to happen, but it will happen when you do convey things in a transparent way. And I can guarantee you that if someone fell in love with that unit, there's nothing I can show them that will make them like it more than when they fell in love with that unit.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but they're going to have to overcome whatever I have to show them, which is only a reflection of the Strata itself.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's where we come in.
But I mean,
your expertise.
But
you can make them feel at home.
To back up, like this idea of like, Eli Report killing deals, like, wouldn't you want, as a realtor, the deal to be killed rather than to be sued by your client because they feel like you shoved them into something that was inappropriate for them? Like,
I would personally. I want to know. I want to know what's coming down the pipeline. And I want my client to know.
You want informed decision making. That's the crux of all of this as realtors. We want to educate and inform, and this is just one of those ways that we allow people to make informed decisions.
Yes. You guys do a great job. We're only trying to help. I hope that we do.
You do.
You do.
Thank
Very
you
much so.
very much for your feedback. We want feedback, good and bad. We really do. If there's something I'm doing wrong, I want to make it right. If there's something I can add that will make it better, I want to know. Yeah. So if you're listening and you are interested in this, I'd love to know what else you'd like to see. Because if there's a way for us to do it, I will try.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Thomas. I'll send you my list of 30 items.
I'll get on it.
Okay, now let's move into some fun questions for Thomas. Or
finally, let's have some
right.
fun with
lighten
this.
up a little bit, guys.
Well, fun for you, fun for me.
No, these are fun.
Yeah,
for you
we
too.
should probably start with these moving forward.
One book, podcast, or resource you'd recommend to someone interested in real estate, tech, or both.
I think it's applicable across everything. I've said it before, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's a book on negotiations, and he was a former hostage negotiator, and he brings a unique perspective to that. You guys live in a world where negotiation is a part of your daily lives. So as realtors, as potential home buyers, I would read Never Split the Difference.
Yeah. I actually have that on Audible, and it's been sitting there for a long time.
Yeah. Give it a listen.
I love it.
It's a good one. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay. Number 2, on the other side of content, what's a guilty pleasure show or podcast you're currently obsessed with?
I've been listening to a whole lot of podcasts lately. I have a face that's made for radio, as your cameras will certainly pick up. And didn't really want to be a public face for anything. But when you run a startup, you kind of have to make a decision to put yourself out there or not. And so against my better judgment, here I am. Yes. So in terms of guilty pleasures, I've enjoyed so many on this real estate theme. I will tell you that I had my best discussion with James Faulkner, who runs the Site Max podcast in Vancouver. He was a great host. I've listened to a number of his conversations. So because I'm not allowed to say yours, I will say that his. Yours are more fun and more varied. His are very focused on construction and building and all of those aspects, whereas you guys get to talk about where's all this money for the pool going to come from. And so that's fun. And actually, you've enriched my knowledge of the suburbs of Victoria and what.
We haven't even got to, I think we're like a 10th in. There's so many.
We got some work to do.
We got a lot more.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because I have really enjoyed that.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks. What is one purchase you've made in the last year, say under $1,500?
You changed that question. It was 1,000, but further to your point, inflation. Right?
It's podcast inflation. In the last year, under $1,500 that has changed your life for the better. If you can think of anything.
Gosh. Long pause as I rack my brain for something
finally
that I have bought that has changed my life. I don't know. I have a really nice, backup charger. I know. My
Yes.
wife will laugh like crazy when she hears this. I haven't told her about any of my podcasts, but I'll give her this one.
Okay.
I bought the robot vacuum.
Like a Roomba?
Ooh, a Roomba?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one that like empties itself when it goes home.
Mhm.
And I have kind of been obsessed with, in the beginning, watching him map
Figure
the
it
room.
out.
And then I cut the lines and I'm like, go that way, not that way. And so my wife will laugh like crazy. But for less than $1,500, my answer is my robot vacuum.
Yeah, I feel like
Awesome.
you had to say robot though. If you hadn't said
I didn't
it-
even make that connection.
Yeah,
so,
that's funny.
late afternoon, didn't
Mhm.
even.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. What is the weirdest or most surprising thing you've ever seen in a Strata document?
Not going there.
Not going there. Okay, skip.
Not
skip,
going there.
skip,
Nope,
skip,
sorry.
skip.
Oh,
we-
it's
we'll-
weird, you guys.
We will leave it to the listeners' imagination on that
now
one.
I really want to know.
Yeah. To be continued after
Yeah.
recording.
And lastly, if you could own any property in BC for free, where would it be?
Right where I am.
Yeah,
Aw.
Victoria. Wow.
No, he's in Vancouver.
I'm in
Oh, I
Vancouver.
thought you meant right here, right now.
No, right here, right now. I don't want to live in your
Yeah.
office. I mean, it's nice, but
We have good Wi-Fi.
Yeah. No, we don't.
Yeah.
no, I mean a home. I think
Yeah.
wherever you are, a
Mhm.
home
Yeah,
is a great place. If you're lucky enough to have one, you chose it for a reason. That's where I'd want to be.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
Would
you
you like
all.
to leave behind any contact? Where can people learn more about Eli Report or the annual benchmark report? How can realtors and property managers, start using these tools? How can they reach out?
Yeah, thank you. Our website is elireport.com, ELI report.com. That's where you can learn about our consumer products, the things that are built for realtors and property managers. And then our parent company, OctoAI.com. And that's where you can learn a bit more about us as a company that's building condo intelligence.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to quickly record our outro. Thanks, guys, for listening to the Victoria Real Estate Podcast produced by the CityNest team. We have had some fantastic reviews and we love them. So please leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you are listening. We also really appreciate you guys sharing the podcast with friends and family. Otherwise, Vince Jocelyn, how can people get in touch?
Oh, Jocelyn, please, after you.
You can call me at 604-907-2074.
And just email me, vincent@citynest.ca.
And
Thanks.
and you can reach out to Adrian at 250-464-4122 or on Instagram at Adrian Real Estate Victoria. Thanks, guys.